Time now for a look at today's business news with our business editor, Brian Quinn, who's on set with me. Hi, Brian.
Hey, Nadia.
You're going to be starting us today in Argentina. That's where the government is asking the IMF to restructure its debt payments. Tell us a bit about it.
Well, Buenos Aires is seeking to lengthen the payment period on some $101 billion of government debt. $57 billion of that is owed to the IMF, with repayment due to start in 2021. The fund says it will consider Argentina's request and that it's standing by the country. The Buenos Aires stock market has fallen about 30% since business-friendly President Mauricio Macri lost a party primary election to center-left rival Alberto Fernandez on August 11th. That upset led to the resignation of Argentina's finance minister. His replacement seeking to calm financial markets. Here he is.
We have proposed to the international organization, and this was one of the suggestions we received from the opposition that we found prudent, reasonable, and timely. And so we proposed to the IMF to initiate a dialogue. It must inexorably conclude in the next term to restructure debt repayments with that international organization.
And Brian, all of this coming just 2 months before Argentina's next election.
That's right. And clearly, President Mauricio Macri in a rather unenviable position for that re-election bid of his. It was his administration that negotiated the IMF loan last year, and the IMF remains extremely unpopular in the country. Its latest bailout has come with a raft of austerity conditions, resulting in steep cuts to healthcare and education. Meanwhile, the country's economy remains in recession, with inflation at 55%, 32% of the population living in poverty. Many Argentines blame IMF austerity terms for the country's previous economic crisis in the early 2000s. Thousands of people rallied in the capital on Wednesday, demanding food aid, increased social spending, and wage hikes as they protested neoliberal policies put in place under Macri and his deal with the IMF.
We are here to protest so that the government responds to the social crisis that we are going through in our neighborhoods.
There is zero employment opportunity. Our children aren't in a good way. Some have finished high school, but because they live in the slums, they aren't recruited.
Let's take a look now at how markets are doing today. Brian, what are we seeing on the stocks?
Well, Asian indexes are down slightly Thursday as investors eye the widening inverted spread between 2-year and 10-year U.S. bond yields. That typically a sign of looming recession. Tokyo's Nikkei and the Kospi in Seoul down around 1/10 and 0.2% respectively, as a trade spat between Japan and South Korea shows no signs of being resolved. Chinese indexes in the red, as well as Washington locks in a 5% tariff hike on around $300 billion of Chinese goods. That's set to begin on September 1st.
Meanwhile, Brian, here in Paris, the business forum MEDEF continues its annual meeting today.
That's right. The heads of France's biggest companies are weighing in on the global economy and the changes taking place here at home. Top of the agenda this year is the government's effort to reform the pension system, a touchy issue in the French labor market and one that Emmanuel Macron has vowed to push forward in the coming weeks. Our chief business editor, Stephen Carroll, reports.
For the business community, these changes to the pension system are a no-brainer. The company bosses that I've been speaking to say it's simply essential that these changes are made to keep the system funded into the future. MEDEF supports the introduction of this equilibrium retirement age at 64, up from the current 62, at which people would receive their full pension. The message from the organisation today is that the government should be very clear that people will have to work longer to receive their pension.
We have to prepare for the contraction of our economy. How? By increasing the speed of reforms. That's why the pension reform is important. It's France's #1 public spending, and we have the highest tax rates in the developed world. So we have to increase the speed of reforms.
The mood here at the MEDEF conference is pretty optimistic. Private sector hiring figures have been strong so far this year in France, and company bosses seem inclined to keep hiring, at least for the rest of 2019. Those dark clouds over the global economy, warnings of recessions from other countries, aren't concerning business leaders here too much, at least for now, although there has been plenty of discussion here of both the US-China trade war and, of course, of Brexit.
And you'll hear more about what's in store for French businesses in this week's People and Profit, which begins airing this afternoon at 4:45 p.m. Paris time.
Brian, finally for business, digital assistants then, they've been at the centre of a number of privacy scandals in recent months, and it looks like now it is Apple's turn in the hot seat.
That's right, the iPhone maker is apologizing for a program in which it hired contractors to listen to and transcribe recordings of customer interactions with its Siri digital assistant. In July, The Guardian reported that contractors regularly heard confidential medical details, drug deals, even sexual encounters as they transcribed audio to improve Siri's functioning. Apple has made privacy protection a central selling point. The company now says it will no longer retain recordings and that customers will be able to opt in and out of the Siri improvement system. You have to wonder if people were actually asking Siri for help with some of those, Nadia.
Siri, what's the capital?
Could she? Maybe. I don't know. I've never tried.
Never given it a go?
Yeah,
All right, Brian,
we'll
if you say so. Brian Quinn with our business update on the programme.